Well, good morning, friend. I hope you're having a good, cold Saturday morning this morning. There's light at the end of the tunnel. Amen. It's supposed to warm up today, and I think this coming week is supposed to get warmer in the days ahead. So that's a good thing. I used to like the cold weather, but I don't like it anymore. So hopefully the spring will be here for too long. I was reading in Mark chapter 9 this morning, and I just wanted to share this with you. Maybe it'll help somebody. You've heard the saying, it's always darkest before the dawn. You know, it seems like sometimes the situation gets worse before it gets better. Well, I was reading through Mark chapter 9, and this man brings his son to the disciples, and they couldn't heal him. And so he brings him to Jesus. And he comes to Jesus, and he says, I want you to heal my son. And in Mark chapter 9, let's see here, verse 19, it says, he answered him and said, O faithless generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him unto me. I think he's kind of looking at his disciples like, come on, boys, y'all couldn't do the job. Y'all couldn't get the job done. And so he says, bring him to me. Right? So the dad brings the lad to Jesus. And as soon as as soon as the demon-possessed boy sees Jesus, he starts having a fit. It says in verse 20, said, and when they brought him unto him, and when he saw him, straightway the spirit tear him, and he fell down on the ground and wallowed foaming. All right, so here's a kid. I don't know how old the guy is, but he'd been demon possessed for a long time, and nobody could help him. And so now when he comes to Jesus, and Jesus is the answer, and Jesus is going to heal him, he's come to the right place for the right reason, and he comes to Jesus, and as soon as he sees Jesus, the devil in him starts fighting. And that's the way it's going to be in your life. You got something going on in your life, you got some difficulty, and you say, I'm gonna give my life to the Lord. I'm gonna draw nigh to God. When you decide I'm gonna draw nigh to God, you mark it down. The devil's gonna try to stop you. There's gonna be trouble. There's gonna be difficulty. Why? Because he's trying to keep you there. He don't want you to be close to the Lord. He wants you to stay in that mess you're in. He wants you to stay in that train wreck of your life. He wants you to stay there. And look, it's not always easy. I mean, this kid, well, I want to be healed, but I don't want to fall on the ground and froth at the mouth, And it's going to get worse here in a second. I'll read it to you in a minute. But, we decide that we want to do right, and the devil's going to try to stop you. There's a passage in Isaiah that says, he that departeth from iniquity maketh himself a prey, P-R-E-Y. You're a prey to the devil. As long as you're not doing anything, as long as you're just sitting back and, nothing's going on in your life, and you're not very spiritual, and you don't care about the things of the Lord, and you're just, living for yourself, devil ain't going to bother you. He's not going to bother you at all, because he's got you where he wants you. But as soon as you decide, I'm going to live right, I'm going to let my life count for the Lord, I'm going to go to Jesus, I'm going to draw nigh to God. Well, as soon as you do that, the devil's going to try to stop you. All right, so the dad brings the son to Jesus, and as soon as the son sees Jesus, he starts flipping out. He starts frothing at the mouth. Let me read it again, verse 19, or verse 20. He said, and when he saw him, straightway the spirit tear him, and he fell to the ground and wallowed. And he asked his father, verse 21, it says, how long has it been like this? And he said, of a child. And he casts him into the fire and casts him into the water and tries to destroy him. And so Jesus talks about belief. He said, if thou can believe. It's funny. The dad comes to Jesus and says, if you can help him, help him. And Jesus says, if you can believe, I will. The father says, if thou canst. And Jesus said, if thou can. In other words, come to the right place in faith. All right. So verse 25. When Jesus saw the people running together, he rebuked the foul spirit, saying unto him, thou dumb and deaf spirit, I charge thee, come out of him, and enter no more into him. And the spirit cried and rent him sore, and came out of him, and he was as one dead, inasmuch as many said, he is dead. And so he comes to Jesus. Jesus casts the devil out. But the devil's going, how many, I have repossessed cars for years. And especially somebody that knows you coming. Now, there's been a lot of good people that have had trouble, difficulty, and they've cleaned the car out, left the keys in it. You go, but there's a lot of people that, you know, they know you're coming, and so they sabotage the car. You know, they'll leave it trash. They rip stuff out of it. You know, they'll take the radio, they'll take the tires off. Had one guy, he knew I was coming, and so it was a Jetta, and it was down in Blount County, out in the middle of nowhere. And he knew I was coming, and evidently he couldn't get it worked out with the finance company, so he just left it there for the finance company to get. So they sent me. Well, he took the lug nuts off of the rear tires, and I think he either took them off or just left them barely on there. And I was coming up. I'm in 231 anyways, then through Cleveland when the wheels fell off the thing. Because I didn't check, you don't go check the lug nuts to see you wouldn't have thought that. But, people want to tear it up. And that's what, that's what the devil's going to do. If the devil sees that you're convicted and convinced and you're committed, that he's going to try to stop you. He's going to try to do as much damage as he can. So this guy, he comes to Jesus. Jesus cleanses him, and he just falls over. It's so bad that people look at it and say, "Well, he's dead. He's dead. There ain't no hope for him. He's gone. He's a goner." But he was healed. He was cleansed, and he got up. I think it is. Let me read it. Look on here a little bit further. It says, "But Jesus took him by the hand and lifted him up, and he arose. And when he was coming to the house, his disciple asked him privately, Why could we not cast him out? And he said, This kind cometh forth not but by prayer and fasting." That's a whole nother story. But my point was, and my point is, it's always too soon to quit. Some of us mess our lives up really bad. And, you're really far away from the Lord. And you decide, I'm gonna get my life right. I'm gonna straighten up. I'm gonna do what the Lord wants me to do, and I'm gonna rededicate my life to the Lord. And it's not always easy to do that because you got all this baggage that you've accumulated while you was away from the Lord, and some of that stuff you just have to deal with. I used to speak to the guys at the DRC. That's the Day Reporting Center for the Alabama Board of Pardons and Paroles. And these guys on probation and parole. And I talked to them and I said, look, if you don't like what you're reaping, then change what you're sowing. If you don't like corn, then quit sowing corn. If you don't like okra, if you don't like okra, you're probably not saved. But if you don't like okra, I'm just kidding. Then don't sow okra. All right. So here you are. You say, okay, all right. I've been sowing the seeds of sin and rebellion against God. I'm gonna live right. I'm gonna do right. And so today, you stop sowing rebellion. Today, you stop sowing disobedience. Today you stop sowing, for self, and you start sowing in your life. You start doing the good things. You start walking with God, start reading your Bible, you start finding a good church to go to, and, you start doing the right thing. And you think, oh, man, now everything's going to be great. Well, everything's eventually going to be great, but you've still got the harvest that's going to come from what you started sowing before. The bad harvest has still been sown. Now, you're sowing good seed now, but you still may have to wait till the bad seed springs up, and you're going to have to face the consequences of what you did when you were sowing the bad seed. Now, if you'll stay by the stuff, and like I said, it's always too soon to quit. If you'll keep going forward, eventually, if you're sowing good seed, eventually you're going to outlive the bad seed. You're going to outlive the bad harvest. But until the good harvest overwhelms the bad harvest, you may not like the things that happen. And the devil's going to try to stop you. So I just want to encourage you, stay faithful. Keep doing the right thing. Just stay faithful. Jesus is the Lord of the harvest. He's going to give it. You just keep doing the right thing. Draw nigh to God. He'll draw nigh to you. And whatever difficulties may arise, whatever problem comes, just mark it down. That's part of the process. Because you mark it down. If you quit, you're going to quit right before the blessing came. We want to stay faithful and stay faithful and stay faithful and stay faithful. And, and then finally we give up, and, the answer was at the door. and we didn't stay faithful long enough. So stay faithful. Fight one more round. Just keep on keeping on and trust God for the victory, and He'll give it if you'll be committed. You just stay faithful. He'll bless you. I guarantee it. Have a great day, neighbor. God bless you, and I hopefully will see you tomorrow.